Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. And you nailed it earlier. You said that you want them to be the best versions of themselves. I think you and I would both agree that when all aspects of your life are in line, and so it can't just be basketball and academics, but also your relationship with Christ, when that's in line, you really do get to be the best version. I would imagine that when players are all moving in that direction, that your team culture is better, that they're more selfless, and they probably work harder and they're more authentic with why they work hard. So it just, to me, it sounds like it's a great path to be on as a coach and a team.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little spiel here. This is going to sound like I'm my recruiting spiel, but I'm going to tell you because you're nailing it on the head.
Let's bring
this is really what we are. So, I'm really big on joy. All we talk about is joy, joy, joy. Play free, play free. And I say, we say we don't believe. I don't believe that God determines who wins and loses basketball games. I feel like that's kind of a little bit over the top. I think, He loves people on both teams. If this guy's praying more than this one, is he going to make you win? No. But what I tell my guys is, I really do say this. I don't believe that he's going to determine outcome, but I do believe that he will empower you to be the best version of yourself if you let him. And if you are operating at your peak performance, at best level of yourself, you're going to be hard to beat because you're playing free and you're being the best you are. And I know you're already talented because we did that. So the basis of our program, everything, we have a twofold thing. And this might be, I'm going to try to do it fast, but
you're good. Keep going.
But so we have a twofold thing. The first one we call C3, and that's your character plus your competency equals consistency. So what does that mean? That your character, who you are, your relationship with Christ, how you go about your daily life. Do you look people in the eye? Do you treat people with respect? Do you treat women with respect? Do you treat, teachers with respect, your teammates, all these things? How do you deal with those parts? That's got to stay at a really high level. And then obviously your competency, your skill level also has to be high. It's basketball. You can't be bad. But I think if either one of those are off kilter, exactly what you just said. You need them both to be at a high level in order to sustain consistent success. You can have short-term success. You can have some success with one or the other. But the reality is, in anything you do in life, whether you want to be a businessman or a basketball player or a father or a husband or whatever it is you want to do in your life, to be consistently successful, both got to align. So we have a twofold thing. We do the first part is that we really spend a lot of time individually at the beginning of the year, like working on each kid. And then have you ever read Coffee Bean by John Gordon?
Not yet. Not yet.
Coffee Bean's awesome. I'm about to kind of give it away a little bit.
Okay.
So we have this thing, the C3, and we take care of that once we get individually. And then we have this thing called, we really focused on that the last 3 years. It's really elevated us. And it's, let's say you have a pot of water that's boiling, right? And that's just adversity or life. There's 3 ways you can handle it, like a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean. You put a carrot into water, the carrot breaks down, gets soft. It's changed by its surroundings. It's malleable. It can be broken down. You put an egg into water. What does the egg do? Hardens itself, right? Protects itself, gets like that. But if you have a coffee bean, you put it into water. The water still changed what happened with the coffee bean, but the coffee bean left an imprint of itself throughout the water, right? It transformed it around. So we're saying if you do that first part, and then we have this mentality of togetherness. When they watch us play, you just see us pour out onto it's like pouring a pot of coffee into a cup. Like you're seeing the whole team just come at you, SAGU basketball as a whole. So when we get to that point, that's when we're pretty good. And the last 3 years we've been really successful. And it's not, I'm not doing anything special or anything like that. I really believe that we're just playing freely and we play with joy. We had all these COVID shutdowns last year. And I just kept saying, guys, we're barely even getting to practice. Just play. This is a game. Love it and play. And we just kept playing well. And I really believe it's because of freedom. And to be honest with you, I got away from it a little bit this year myself because we were so good. And I messed it up a little bit I got off kilter.
You started overcoaching.
I did start talking about all these things that I've never talked about before to try to win the championship. It's like, nah, it's too much. So when I settled back down, we start playing better again too. It's funny.
Coach, that kind of hyped me up. Like if I think I would have loved to play for a guy like you. But then, right now, like let's go work out or do something because that's
do something energetic.
that got me going. I felt myself just forgetting that we're even on this call and just nodding along. But you're so man, so a few directions we could go right there. But I'll take the basketball one of because of COVID. I think a lot of coaches, and we run a free flowing style here where we do value the 3-point shot, but we're trying to get the best shot as fast as possible. We play in a lot of space, and with that freedom, I think because of COVID, a lot of you're right. Everybody had to be more simplistic, but from that they saw the beauty of what basketball can be when you get guys with concepts playing together, making plays instead of just running plays. But then you're right. Sometimes, I mean, I thought just watching the NCAA tournament this year, I just saw so much control happening and then and handcuffing at times. But then what happens at the end of every shot clock? Bring a ball screen or get away from him and let him create. But anyway, no, I think you're right on the money.
No, that's big. And I've learned, it's funny, you grow so much as a coach over the years. And, I coached, like I said, I coached in Taps when I was like 20, a long time ago. Head coach when I was really young. I was really bad looking back on it. But,
You've apologized to some players.
But it's funny. I mean, we won. Somehow we won. We did win, but it wasn't because of anything I was doing. I think it's some of the same stuff. But I've realized the more, when I first got to college, and it was really difficult because I had to adjust a lot because high school was, we had good players. And so we won a state championship. We just had all these good players and we were playing crazy and can't really do that as much. And you got to have a little bit more togetherness or poise. And when you got to college, so it stretched me, and I was doing so much at the beginning that it was messing. I think I was overdoing it. Like you said, over coaching. I started to realize the longer I've coached, I don't want to say less is more because details matter and all those things, but there's definitely a point where you've got to be like, man, just play, like we're going to, like you said, concepts and put some things in. And these are we're going to be disciplined in these areas, but I'm also going to give you freedom to be, but not be in this box all the time so that you can still be yourself. So you're not looking at me for every answer, because there's times when I can't give you the answer in some moments. Sometimes you got to be able to answer it on your own. So, really setting them up beforehand. Do your work early is what we say. Yeah.
I always push back a little bit when people make comments like, with free flowing or a freedom based offense, it's going to be messy and undisciplined. I mean, I don't care what you run at the very beginning stages, it's usually messy while players are finding their way. But I think it's possible too with having concepts for free basketball where players aren't looking over their shoulder. They're not running an organized action or multiple stages of actions to still be clean and be disciplined. I would actually argue that the more freedom, maybe this is like our faith, right? The more freedom that we have in our life, the more disciplined we better be, or else it all falls apart.
Mm-hmm. So, when you let them play free, and this all comes down to getting your players to play unselfishly, to play together, to be on time, to be on target, to do little things like that. If you do those things, then it doesn't matter. When you give them more freedom, there's actually more answers to the questions, because you don't have a pattern that's getting broken up, that you're not sure what to do next, or you're having to go down your checklist and things are getting taken away and you're having a hard time finding the answer. But in freedom, you can find the answer. But the reality is it's all about how you're playing. So we were very good. We averaged over 16 assists a game the last couple of years, and we've done a really good job moving the ball around without a lot of structure. And it's just because we've had some unselfish players. We've been willing for everybody to touch it. But if you watch when we struggle, it's because we don't. And so it's not the system. It's just, you can see it. Like there's times we're seeking it out or over dribbling or trying to do too much, and we're never good in those games. And then when we're moving the ball around, we're really hard to beat because we defend all the time usually, but the offense is a hit or miss. So I mean, there's good and bad. I understand the sloppiness to it. I can understand turning on some of our films sometimes and being like, "What in the world?" But it's organized chaos. If you know what's going on and you've got it free, then we're good with it. Yeah. And also tell them you can always get it back. So if you come down and do something dumb and you get a stop and you get it right back, it's like it never happened. So we're good as long as you're doing the other things. I'll let you have some freedom.
Yeah, you're so right on the money. I think one of the most terrifying thoughts behind playing this way or coaching this way is the fact that you're really giving control, in my case, to 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Yours are a little bit older, but still, you're giving a lot of control to them. But the fun part is you're right. Like, it's about their decisions that they're making. And you try to show them how different decisions can influence and help their possession.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the coaching piece, instead of just you did the wrong play, you went to the wrong spot. Instead of teaching from that negative standpoint that I feel like happens a lot when you're running a lot of actions, you really get to, hey, right now, fellas, I don't think we're making the best decisions that we can make. So when we get to the paint and we do draw people, instead of doing something difficult or trying to force one, eyes up, find a teammate, look for one mores, and then reattack. But then at the end of the day, you're right on the money. Don't worry. It's in 13th Warrior is one of my favorite movies from back in the day. Antonio Banderas, and Antonio is hacking away at this one guy, just beating him. And one of the Vikings come up and says, "Hey, don't worry, little brother. There's more." Like that type of mentality. Don't keep hacking away at something bad or thinking about something that happened. Don't worry. There's more opportunities. I think that frees guys like you and I up in our coaching.
Yeah, and I like that. That's one thing you said is, the being able to coach positively with correction and get the discipline out without it having to be, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. So that's a balance. It's a big thing. I'm reading this book called Unoffendable. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before, but it's talking about, it's pretty good. You should, it'll mess you up.
I love it. Any books that you're thinking about throughout this talk, mention it, because I'm building a list.
Okay. Yeah. And I got this from actually Aaron Smith at Panola College, who a good friend of mine, but he was just talking about this a couple of days ago. So I just started reading it. It's funny, but it's talking about pretty much, do we have the right to really be angry? And a lot of times we say righteous anger is actually out of selfishness and not actually out of righteousness. And it's because we think things are right. And one analogy uses, like, you're in a parking lot and a guy's turning in and you're like, man, look at this guy not seeing me. He's coming in the parking lot. He's wrong. Then the next day you're turning in and there's a guy sitting there and you're like, why is this guy sitting in the parking lot? He's wrong. But both times you looked at yourself as you're right. And so I'm like, how do I put this into my team to where, am I really getting angry because of something that I should be angry about? Or am I getting angry because I feel like I got the answers and they aren't doing it right and I'm mad at it? Or is there more to it than that? That's always deeper than that. So I want to find a way to positively get them to where we need to go. Be disciplined, and you're going to have to be hard on them if you want them to be disciplined, but there's a spirit behind it and a love behind it and things like that, to where they know, like, we're doing this because we're getting you to this point, and how do I communicate that clearly? That's why one of the reasons that I like the freedom stuff, that's why we spend so much time on culture and so much time on relationships and way less time on basketball. Because when we just film, get better. I mean, that stuff, it just becomes overwhelming. And then the kids get tight. And then what are they doing? They're worried about messing up what they just watched on, instead of just playing. Like, if you just play, it's going to work itself out. See the thing you messed up? Well, let's make sure we play hard all the time. And if you do that and you're engaged in it, then I think we're going to fix a lot of these problems. And if we don't, then we'll get a little bit more into it. But that starts with me. So I got to do a better job, and we got to do better. So that's it. Yep.
You nailed it right there at the end. How, if any coaches are listening now, I want to play freer style. I want to play in transition more. I want the ball to move more. I want less plays being called and more just players making plays and finding actions. What you just said, I believe, is it. It starts with us allowing them to do so. And that's a hard shift. I mean, really, especially those of us that we call ours controlled chaos. You call yours organized chaos, but there's a chaotic pattern to it, but you have to allow them to find a way, fall and make mistakes, not rescue and pull them right out, like parenting, right? Like let them fail a little bit. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.